Hello students, I am Dr. Krishnakant from SRR and CVR Government Junior College and welcome to virtual classes conducted by Board of Intermediate Education. In the last class, we have discussed about the abiotic factor, that is temperature and its influence, and the various temperature adaptations. In today's class, we are going to discuss about another abiotic factor, that is water. And we know that life depends on the water. Without water we cannot imagine the life on earth. But the availability of water on earth is not uniform. For example, if you take the deserts, there is a scarcity of water, and the animals or the organisms that live in this desert region show various types of adaptations. On the other hand, when we take the aquatic medium, the water is abundant, but still, even though the water is highly available, the organisms somehow feel some difficulties in coping with the stress induced by the heavy or high availability of water. And the quality of water, that is the composition, the pH, also influences the organisms. And the animals or the organisms that show wide variations, that show the tolerance to the wide variations of the salinities are called euryhaline animals, and those organisms which show tolerant to the less variations in the salinity are known as the stenohaline. And you know, the salinity in case of seawater is around 35%, and in case of the freshwater it is 5%. So this variation of the salinities also have some impact on the animals. And let us see what are the different adaptations of animals in different type of aquatic medium. First of all, we will take up the freshwater animals and their adaptations. Animals that live in freshwater show the endosmosis. Let us see what is endosmosis. So this is a freshwater habitat, and the body fluids of the organisms are hypertonic, whereas the freshwater is hypotonic. So the water enters into the bodies of these aquatic animals, and this is known as the endosmosis. So endosmosis means the water enters from the low concentration to the high concentration, because the body fluids of the organisms is high, that is they are hypertonic, when compared to the aquatic medium, that is the freshwater, and which is hypotonic. And this endosmosis creates a lot of problems. So the water enters into the body, and the water that enters into the body will be excreted in the form of urine. And for excretion of this urine, they have large glomerulus large glomerular kidneys. In case of some protozoans, they will have contractile vacuoles. But the problem is that while the excess of water that entered into the body is eliminated through the urine, but the salts are also eliminated along with this urine. So it creates a problem of salt imbalance. In order to balance these salt loss, they will have certain glands called chloride glands or salt absorbing glands in the gills. So this is the problem that is faced by the animals of freshwater. The water enters into the bodies of these aquatic animals through endosmosis, that means water from the low concentration to the higher concentration. Since the body fluids of these animals are hypotonic when compared to the aquatic medium, since it is hypotonic, the excess of water that enters into the body is eliminated through urine. For this purpose, they have large glomerular kidneys. In case of protozoans, they will have some contractile vacuoles to eliminate the excess of water. But the problem with this elimination of water as urine is that salts are also lost through urine. In order to compensate this salt loss, they have certain salt absorbing chloride glands or the salt absorbing glands in the gills so that the salts are retained. So this is the adaptations shown by the freshwater habitat animals. But in case of summer, the freshwater ponds will completely dry up. So how they will take up this condition, this unfavorable condition? Let us see. In case of protists like amoeba and paramecium, they will have some encystement. Encystement means they will secrete a strong cuticle based cyst around their bodies during the summer, and after the favorable conditions returns, they will have existment and they will come to life again. In case of sponges, they show some asexual bodies called gemmules. And in case of African lungfish, Protopterus, it will create a gelatinous cocoon around its body and it burrows in the soil. So these are some of the adaptations shown by the freshwater organisms during the summer. So on one hand, the excess of water that enters into the body is eliminated. In case of summer, they will have some other mechanisms like encystment and gemmules or gelatinous cocoon in case of Protopterus, that is African lungfish. Now let us see the problems faced by the marine organisms. In case of marine habitat, the problems faced by the organisms are somewhat opposite to that of the freshwater habitat organisms facing. Here what happens, the marine habitat, the body fluids are hypotonic and the water, that is the salt water, is hypertonic. So the water enters into the habitat, or they will lose water from their bodies, and this is known as exosmosis. because it is salt water, around 35% is saline. When compared to the body fluids, when compared to the body fluids, the surrounding aquatic medium is highly salty or highly concentrated. So the water enters from the bodies of these organisms into the nearest media. So that is, the water is lost by exosmosis. And in order to compensate the water loss, they will drink the seawater. So in order to compensate this water loss through exosmosis, the animals will drink a lot of water. But the problem is that along with this water, salts are added to the body. So that means they have excess of the salts in the body. Now they have to get rid of these salts. Then what are the adaptations? First one is, already they have lost a lot of water because of the exosmosis, so they cannot afford to lose some more water through urine. So urine formation will be very less, and they have aglomerular kidneys. That means the water or the loss of water through urine is very less. So they will secrete a very few amounts of urine. And the next one is the excess of salts. So excess of salts that entered into the body through the drinking of seawater will be got rid by salt secreting cells or chloride cells in the gills. In case of some animals like seagulls and penguins, the excess of the salts are eliminated through the nostrils. So the salts excreted through the nostrils. In case of turtles, the salt secreting ducts open near the eyes. So the excess of salts are eliminated through the ducts that open near the eyes. And the cartilaginous fish. So the cartilage fishes will have some other type of adaptations. They will store urea or triethylamine oxide or TMO. So these are stored so that the body becomes isotonic with the aquatic medium. So that means they will store these chemicals like urea or triethylamine oxide so that the osmotic concentration of their body fluids is equal to the aquatic medium, so that no exosmosis takes place, so that they do not have to face the loss of water. So these are the some adaptations shown by the animals that live in marine habitat. So the brackish water animals will have some different kind of problems. So brackish water refers to the area in which the river water joins the sea. So this area is known as the brackish water. So in brackish water, the salt or the salinity is between that of river and the sea. That means the salinity is higher than the river and less than the sea water. So the variations of the salinity occurs, and animals, as I have already told, that can tolerate the wide variations in the salinity are called euryhaline. So the animals that live are euryhaline, and they show two types of migration. One is called the anadromous migration. Anadromous migration refers to the migration from sea water to the river water. That means they will show the migration from the sea to the river against the water flow. So they will migrate for the breeding purpose. Examples are Hilsa and the salmon. And opposite to this migration is known as the catadromous migration. Catadromous migration refers to the migration from river water to the sea water. It is in accordance to the flow of this river water. And example is anguilla. It is a fish also known as eel, a common eel. So these are the two types of migrations. But all these animals have to face some kind of osmotic problem, because the sea water salinity and the river water salinity is somewhat different. So the kidneys of these fishes, that is those show the anadromous as well as the catadromous, will have to adjust to the osmotic concentrations. For example, the salmon fish will drink river water after entering into the fresh water. So this is how some of the organisms that live in the brackish water will show some kind of adaptations. So in case of the terrestrial mode of life, the animals face different types of problems. In case of the kangaroo rat, in the North American desert, we know that desert region have scarcity of water, and this kangaroo rat has a unique type of adaptation in which it will depend on the metabolic water. Metabolic water means during the fats oxidation, so oxidation of fat, some amount of water is produced metabolically, and this amount is used for the carrying out the activities. So even the small amount of water is useful for this kangaroo rat to continue its life in the desert. So it's a adaptation shown by the terrestrial animals. So these are the various kinds of adaptations shown by the animals to the influence of the abiotic factor, that is water. So the next abiotic factor is soil, and the nature and the characteristics of soil and nature and properties, you can say properties of soil depends on the climate and weathering. Weathering refers to the disintegration and decomposition of rocks. You know, soil is formed by the disintegration and decomposition of rocks by the action of various types of factors like wind, water, etc. So the soil is formed based on the climate and the weathering conditions, and the characteristic features of soil like pH, the grain size, the aggregation. Aggregation means coming together of these grains. All these depends on, all these characters will determine the percolation. Percolation means the capacity of soil to absorb water into its deeper layers. That is called the percolation. And also the water holding capacity. So the soil properties like the pH, the grain size, the aggregation. Aggregation means the coming close together of these soil particles is known as the aggregation. All these will determine the percolation. Percolation means the ability of soil to absorb the water into the deeper layers, and also the water holding capacity. All these are determines these two qualities. And the vegetation of area also depends on the soil, and the vegetation in turn determines the fauna or the animal distribution. So these are some important aspects of the abiotic factor, the soil. Now let's move to the next abiotic factor, that is the pressure. So pressure is another abiotic factor that also influences the organisms. In case of the land or terrestrial animals, they face around 1 atmosphere pressure at sea level. But this atmosphere pressure varies considerably in case of marine or ocean. So when we go deep into the ocean, for every 10 meters of depth, 1 atmosphere pressure increases. That means when we go deep into the ocean, the pressure increases at the rate of 1 atmosphere pressure for every 10 meters of the depth increases. And animals show various types of biochemical and physiological adaptations to this kind of pressure. So the various types of biochemical and physiological adaptations to the pressure in case of this marine animals, and these adaptations are necessary to cope up with the stress induced by the pressure in the marine atmosphere. But the case of the land is somewhat different. When we move to the higher altitudes means around height of 3,500 meters. For example, in case of Manas Sarovar or Rohtang Pass, we assume these are high or hilly regions, and we see some important characteristic feature called altitude sickness. So altitude sickness is characterized by three symptoms. One is called the fatigue, the tiredness, and nausea. Nausea means a feeling of vomiting, and heart palpitations. Heart palpitations means irregular heartbeat. So this is called as the altitude sickness. So when we go into the higher altitudes, one experiences these type of characters. But soon we have some physiological adaptation to this altitude sickness by increasing the RBC production, and the rate of respiration, or we can say rate of breathing or rate of respiration also increases. So this is how the altitude sickness can be overcome by the physiological adaptations. So with this, we have concluded the abiotic factors. We discussed about the light, we discussed about the temperature, the soil, pressure, and the water. We will continue with our class in the with some other topic.